Sorry to mean to make you jump, Councillor. Good afternoon. It's Monday, November 5th. This is your Sioux Falls City Council informational meeting. We'll start this meeting with our administration communication. Welcome, Ms. Beck.
Good afternoon, Council. Erica Beck with the Mayor's Office. A couple of updates for you this afternoon. Several weeks ago, I think, updated the Council regarding the Glory Houses project at the former location of the Ice and Rec facility here in town. The city's completely removed that facility, and the Glory House expects to take ownership of the property in the next 10 days. Assuming that the weather cooperates, they will then start site work on that project yet this fall. Second update, in relation to the presentation that you received, I believe it was on October 23rd from Albert Schmidt of the Planning and Development Services Department. He specifically talked to this group on annexation. I wanted to report that Albert has received, as of this last Friday, the signed annexation petition from that particular project. Due to some, I think, health challenges that Mr. Burns has, the City Planning and Development Services Office has decided to not bring that forward for council consideration until January of this next year. So assuming that that moves forward on January 15th, it would then become effective on February 7th, and then following that, the city would initiate a rezone of Mr. Burns's property. So just an update on that. If you have any specific questions or if you'd like a copy of that signed agreement, please feel free to let me know, and we can have Albert send that out. Last week, Planning and Development Services, Mike Cooper's department came out with their year-to-date building permit totals, of which I wanted to comment on. Year-to-date for October, is just over 700 million. Last year at this time, it was 739, or I'm sorry, in total for 17, it was 739 million. I know that we have focused on that number a lot in the past, and we'll still continue to track that. But one of the things that I wanted to comment on, of which is available on the Planning and Development Services website, and I'll send it out to this group as well, Mike's team also tracks all of those building permits in terms of their valuation. So all of those permits that are over $1 million in total, those are tracked on the city's website. And one of the things that Mike commented on to me last week was just the diversification of those building permits. And if you look at that, those top 10 projects that we have seen provide us with an application this year, it's really a diverse group. So there's government projects in there, there's private sector, commercial, multifamily, industrial projects, which I think is a good indication of how we are doing as a community. So just a heads up on that that is available if you are interested in that out on the city's website. Public Works update. Public Works, Mark Cotter's team will be bringing forward a utility rate presentation at the informational meeting for November 13th. Assuming that that moves forward according to his current schedule, that would come before this group for first reading on November 20th and second reading on December 4th. So again, November 13th, next week, Mark and his team will be bringing you a presentation on that topic. One more thing, excuse me, from Parks and Rec. Don is in the audience as well and can speak to this if you have any specific questions, but I know that there has been some questions about the Arboretum and what the city's focus will be on that moving forward, and Don has shared with the mayor's office that there will be a contract being brought forward to proceed with funding for the master plan for the Arboretum, which I think is a good thing, because just from the background on this project, there's been a lot of due diligence done to get the Arboretum up and going, but a long-term plan needs to be established so that they have a sustainable revenue source. They ultimately know what the design of that Arboretum is going to look like long-term, and that's what this master plan will accomplish. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you for being here. If you want to stay close, I think you're first up. We'll move, I'm sorry, City Council open discussion, I'm sorry. Councilor Sale.
Yes, I have I have a few things. First off, I hope I'm not the only one that's really appreciative that Minnesota Avenue now is a free flow of traffic. That's just awesome. It takes me like a lot less time to drive. Secondly, it is No Shave November. I will be participating in that this year and raising money for prostate cancer research. So if I look a little bit more grisly than normal, you'll know what's going on. And my third and final thing, congratulations to Terry Schmidt and Carol Pipgrass and Don for bringing the 18 and under national softball tournament to South Dakota. It will be awesome. I remember going to that earlier and seeing several Olympians in years past participate in that. So congratulations.
Thank you. Any other open discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Kiley.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, it is No Shave November. And I did get a couple of days head start on the month. But and it is for a great cause. So I would hope that you would consider contributing to one of the many people that are participating. Also, I know that I and Councilor Selberg, and there might have been others that participated in the Read for the Record here a week or so ago. I read to 2 different kindergarten classes at John Harris Elementary. It was a lot of fun. They seemed to be very enthralled with my SDSU Jackrabbit pin, so I recruited the class of 2035. Didn't miss that opportunity to do so. But I understand that the city of Sioux Falls smashed its record for readers, too. I think we almost tripled it from our previous record. So great participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Staley.
I wanted to show a few photos from the sleep out that Councilor Starr and I did about 10 days ago at the Bishop Dudley parking lot. And as you can see, there's some, we got Miles Beacom there, and Stephanie Hearses-Sandlin came out, Gary Wentworth, and we slept in refrigerator boxes in a big tent in the parking lot of the Bishop Dudley house. And this was a fundraiser. They didn't ask me for any money, but if you notice, Councilor Starr is on the end there, and I was next to him, and we were right across from the door on this tent, and the door was not fastened. So it was a very interesting night, because I slept with one eye open because we were just totally open to the public. And they did say to us, if you need to use the bathroom, just come on over to the front door and ring the bell. We'll let you in. So it was really, laying there through the night was just a very vivid experience of what people would go through. Jim, if you want to go through a few more. And we brought in our sleeping bags. They had us into this facility, and there's Stephanie Herseth. It was so cool because got a firsthand view of these family rooms where they, I think there's, Councilor Starr, maybe you can correct me, 20 family rooms perhaps? You don't think there's that? I thought I heard 20. But beautiful rooms with 2 beds. A family can stay there for up to 90 days. And while we were getting a tour of the area, this mother came in with her 3 children and needed a place to stay. And you're thinking, wow, where do these people come from? And we've got to be able to continue funding this and supporting something that is helping to pick up these people who are getting caught in the cracks of the sidewalk. So that was really a very good experience. And the second thing I wanted to say is that my mother died last Thursday, and she was 83, and she had a massive stroke in September, and it was that week that we voted on the budget. We voted on our IT director, and I was able to stay with her. We didn't think she was going to make it that week, so I stayed with her 6 nights that week. And I want to thank Thomas Greco, because he helped facilitate that call-in effort, which I thought worked so beautifully. And so happy to be with my mom, and I was there, and I fed her ice cream, and I fed her yogurt, and I loved her, and she knew I was there, and she started to recover. And she got to go into the nursing home. Jim, and this was taken just a week ago Sunday, last time I saw her, and she said, come back again, and then she died 4 days later. So that was wonderful to be with her. But the other thing that was wonderful in this nursing home, turned into the last with these dogs, her next door neighbor, and this woman gave me permission to use her photo, but here's this lady, I walked by, and here's this dog in this room, and I walked in, I said, hey, what's going on in here? And this lady's been in the nursing home for 10 years. She lost her leg, and her husband can't care for her, so they let her bring the dog in on weekends. And it sleeps on the bed with her. It was so cool. It brought joy to her. And then another guy, while we were there, brought in his dog to visit the patients. And I'm thinking, wow, I don't know that this is a city council effort, but things we can do for these beloved children of God who are at the end of their lives is such a wonderful thing. And I think in Brookings, they even have daycare centers that are connected to nursing homes. So these little children are coming over and eating with these people who need children, grandchildren, and the grandchildren need grandpa and grandmas. And so it was a wonderful experience to encounter these people while caring for my mother. So I just wanted to say that I have received some of the most loving, caring emails from some of you since I've been on the council for 2.5 years. And I will always save those emails. I so appreciate it. So thank you for reaching out, and thank you for caring. Amen.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other open discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to our first presentation, the Cascade Project Update. Chief of Staff Beck.
Thank you again. Jake Kwasny and Chris Torkelson are here from Lloyd Companies to share an update with you with respect to this project. Just a little bit of background on this. So in the spring of 2017, the city initiated an RFP process for the city-owned piece of this project that essentially is adjacent to Phillips Avenue south of 2nd Street. Lloyd Companies, along with I think 4 other groups, responded to that RFP. There was a committee, a selection committee that was established by the city of Sioux Falls. They went through the process of identifying Lloyd Companies as the awardee of that project. This project, the rendering in front of you, is what is being constructed there today as a result of that process. So if you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Lloyd Companies to provide you with the update.
Thank you. Hi, Jake.
Good afternoon, councilors. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jake Kwasny with Lloyd Companies. I oversee the real estate investment and development functions there. So thank you for the opportunity to come here and talk with you today about the Cascades. My update is really focused on the things that affect the development agreement, which really is schedule and the costs that we've incurred relative to the TIF. If any of you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer anything that you have. So from a schedule perspective, we are probably 3 months behind from where we would really like to be. Most of that was associated with site remediation, specific to petroleum on the site, but we're on pace right now to deliver the first building in July of 2019. The development agreement has us delivering that by November of 2019 before we're in breach of the agreement. So we're well ahead of schedule to meet that, and we're excited. We're actually going to start doing the elevator shafts and framing on the second building. So the 2022 delivery of that second building, we should be well ahead of that. So some of that depends on leasing progress and our lenders' approval in that regard. Just a quick kind of touch base on what we dealt with. You've got a few areas there. This is on the vacated alley is the yellow area there, and then that red hashed area and the green is over on the Frankman, the land that we bought from Frankman's. Some of that red contamination, this is what we thought when we went into it. Some of that did end up kind of bleeding over a little more into the city site, but as we went through, we were able to remediate that. The red areas, we actually tilled in a product called Blastox that neutralizes the lead and other contaminants that were in that site or in that soil, and we were able to haul it to the landfill. We worked with DENR. They would come out, we'd till 2 feet at a time, they'd test it, we'd haul it off, we'd do the next 2 feet until we got to the point where we had clean soil and they blessed it. The real problem came in that circle that with the green and the petroleum. As we kept digging, it kept coming, so we kept pumping it out, and it was not an easy task to get that cleaned up. If any of you went down there, you could smell I mean, it smelled like you just poured gas on your shoes at the gas pump. It was strong. And in fact, if you hit a rock with the tractor down there, there were a few times where it did spark a fire. Fortunately, the guys who were doing it are professionals. They know how to deal with that. So you can see here, that really is, I mean, it's water, but it's a lot of petroleum in those holes that we were pumping and using the ground to filter through as we pumped it out and took those contaminants out. Ultimately, we were able to get down to bedrock and get it all cleaned up, and the DENR gave us their clean bill of health for the whole site, and we commenced the parking structure last December, got through that, and now you see it, the first building, we've got all the parking structure enclosed, so the floor's going in there, and we actually are framed up on the 5th floor and doing the roof right now. So I know that there's been an invitation extended for any of you that want to go up there and see it. It is really awesome to get up there and look down on the falls. It's a great view of our beautiful city, so we're hoping we can get you all up there. We also had the joy of getting to blast some rock, which it's expensive, but it was necessary on the site. There were some spots where we just couldn't break through it with the equipment that we had. So that was just something we had to deal with on the site. So I pulled this from the development agreement. This is kind of that estimated cost as we went in. That is north of $4.1 million worth of cost, which is the maximum value of the TIF. But I'll then go on here on the next page, and we've got, these are our costs. Most of these are incurred today for Main Avenue, 2nd Street, and Phillips Avenue. There are some costs in there that are budgeted and contracted for those costs. That's the improvement of the streetscape to be consistent with what you see as we go into downtown, adding the parking stalls on the east side of Phillips, Main Avenue, and bringing all that into line with what the rest of downtown is. We're at just under $4.6 million, and I'll tell you, before I came over here, we do have one more invoice that's going to get added to the land remediation costs, but we have exceeded the 4.1 that was budgeted for, and we'll likely incur a few other costs, but I know that was kind of a big part of this because that agreement was drafted in such a way that if we were fortunate enough to avoid some of these costs, that that TIF would be reduced. Unfortunately, the site did not cooperate, so I wanted to hit it at kind of a high level and then open it up to you all if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jake. Any questions? Councilor Staley.
Okay, Jake, I thought it was 4.3 million.
Nope, it was 4.1.
So how does that work when you go over? You guys just eat the costs? So you can't come back and get another bite of the TIF apple.
From the beginning, we knew we had more than 4.1 million of eligible costs. I mean, technically, if you were to go through the statute, that number was substantially higher than 4.1 million. We worked it down to where our gap was 5.1, and we were able to figure out a way to get it to 4, and that's what we're going to make work. So. And so
just for okay, because I remember. I still have all your information home, but nonetheless, it seemed like it was it like $430,000 for 10 years, something like. What's the term of the TIF payment?
So it has to be repaid within 20 years. I think with the interest rate, which matches the loan terms that we received from MetaBank, which is only locked for the first 7 years, we will. It's scheduled to repay in that like 15 to 16 year range, but obviously there's some speculation within that.
Okay, because weren't we, Erica Beck, I'm just curious, because I thought we were talking like a 10 or 11 year repayment thing. It was 15, okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Neitzer.
Thank you. I think Councilor Staley kind of touched on it already. So that screen you showed, was that all TIF eligible reimbursable costs there, or is that?
Yes, these would be all costs that are in line with the TIF eligible costs that we agreed with the city we would limit it to.
Okay, so you're already over your 4.1 and you have more still coming.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say we're probably going to end up right in little north of 5 million in those buckets that we predetermined with the city that we would use.
Do you have any idea how much cost and time the petroleum surprise added to your project?
Well, I know it cost us a couple months of dealing with the issues that we dealt with there. Some of that was trying to find the bottom in that spot where there was petroleum, because where we hit bedrock with our soil samples, when we hit it with a shovel, it just gave and you had to keep going. So that was part of the issue there from a time perspective, but when you're also dealing with that hole constantly filling up with petroleum, it was definitely a nightmare for those guys. Fortunately, we were able to figure it out. Cost-wise, I don't have that number specifically broken out, but I can get that for you from our team, because this would be a combination of the lead, all the different things that were at the old pit salvage yard where they were cracking batteries and everything, all of that, and then the petroleum.
And do you have any idea, because obviously some of this presumably would be happening, well, I guess maybe not. I mean, some of the public stuff, obviously, you may not be doing if you didn't have a TIF, but, you know, do you have any idea, if we just talked about environmental remediation, have you been able to break out just how much in just environmental remediation you've had to do, you know, compared to just going to a green field?
Yeah, so really, if you were to go that top section, the $2.8 million, I mean, the shoring, that's up against that's allowing the parking up against public right of way, so that would not be in there, and then the 106 for utilities, but the rest of that really does go to site preparation that it would be related to developing a contaminated site.
Excavation, though, I wonder, you know, what the...
You'd have to, I mean, you have the cost of excavating in normal soils in the same conditions, the rock and all that, and then the cost of excavating contaminated soils, breaking that out.